You're listening to the official Reformed Stoic podcast, covering politics, philosophy, theology, conspiracy theories. I'm ready to get to the bottom of this life. Are you? Join Wolfgang, Sketty Squad, Purity Gang, as we strive to take dominion over this dying planet. I am Reformed Stoic, and this is my podcast.
I'll tell you what I really skit. So tell me what you skit, what you really skit. I wanna really skitty. If you wanna be my sketty, you gotta skit with the squad. Everybody's gonna skit it. That's how we work on our quads. Another one. What are we at? 51 today? Man, you know we're gonna skit it when we get to number 100. Celebrate good times. Come on. You can't handle the truth. All right, my friends. How are we doing today? Brand spanking new Discord invite link I'm going to say that once now. I'm going to say that once at the end of the show. If you want in the Discord, now's the time. I don't want to hear all the time, oh, the Discord link. You know what? I renew it when I renew it. So get it while it's hot. Get in there before it's too late. That's how it works. Had a good drumming session today. Had a decent workout, 5 rounds jump rope. And then I did my strength upper body workout. I put on my 20-pound weighted vest. 1 set max rows. 1 set max push-ups with the weighted vest on. Then I wait 2 minutes. Do it again with the vest off. I really try to push it. I think that's my best bet for trying to maintain some strength and some muscle with what I got. Carbon up. Had a couple of pieces of jelly toast. Sipping on my drink. Life's good. Started watching Earthworm Jim last night. It's very weird, but it's growing on me. I feel like my body's kind of like fighting off some sickness right now. I'm getting like the cold of the season, and my body's just not having it, man. A little bit of phlegm in the morning, a little snotty in the morning, but still hitting the workouts. I'm rocking with this diet, dude. I think this diet is keeping me healthy. I did have a little bit of a stomach ache this morning because I partied a little bit too hard with the Rice Krispie treats last night, but I'm out of them. So we're living it. We're skating it. Very meat and potatoes today. Russia, meat, and Joe Biden, potatoes. We go back to these topics. We see what's going on. Sometimes I would really like to mix it up, do something interesting out of the blue that isn't really in the headlines, like psychopaths. And sometimes we just got to stay up with the times and see what's going on. I do got a little bit of an interesting topic to finish with on Christianity and Freemasonry, and whether or not the ideologies are compatible. But, a little this and that, what's going on with Russia, a few things with Biden. His student loans plan is paused. He's talking about the deficit going down, yada, yada, yada. So let's get to it. Let's get through it. News segment. You're listening to the Reformed Stoic News segment. Let's go. Okay, friendos. So, kicking off today's season. Zelensky warns Russia is planning to destroy dam, hydroelectric plant. This is hot off the press today, ABC News.
The latest on the war in Ukraine, President Zelensky issuing an urgent new warning now. A major dam and hydroelectric plant could be in jeopardy, threatening rapid flooding, which would put hundreds of thousands of people in danger. Joining us now, ABC News contributor and former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, Steve Ganyard. Steve, it just seems like one threat after the next. What do you make of this latest concern on behalf of Ukrainian President Zelensky and what the Russians may be doing next?
Yeah, Carrie, it is quite disturbing because it is quite plausible. We have seen the Russians indiscriminately shell villages for months now. So this is to do something that would affect literally hundreds of thousands of people and particularly have, tens of thousands of casualties. It's not something that's unimaginable. It's completely imaginable given the Russian performance up to now. The interesting thing here is that this bridge is just upstream from Kherson, where the bulk of the fighting is going on. And so if they blew this dam, which is really a hydroelectric dam and also used for irrigation, it would send a 15-foot wall of water down towards Kherson, where the Russians are now pulling back and retreating to the eastern side of the river because of the Ukrainian advances. So, Carrie, in the past, you and I have talked about this idea of how it's sometimes helpful to think about geography in strategic terms. So the Dnieper River, which is where this dam dams, is a strategic piece of geography in that it sort of bisects the eastern part of Ukraine. That's where all the agriculture is. That's where much of the mining and manufacturing is. So it is a the lifeline. It is the lifeblood of the Ukrainian economy that goes down to the Black Sea. Why is Kherson important? Because it's the last port city there in going into the Black Sea. You control that, and you control access to the Black Sea. So critical for Ukraine to take that back for its own economic security. So that's why this is such a contentious point. And as Putin is getting pushed back at Kherson, he is now threatening to blow this dam that would cover his tracks and cover that retreat, but it would result in a humanitarian disaster and a crisis for the people that live south of that dam.
Steve, do you think he's getting more and more aggressive and more arrogant here because he's got the backing of Iran?
I think he's getting. I think he's getting more desperate. You know, if you'd asked any of us a year ago, would Russia need to turn to a third-rate military like Iran for its supplies, or North Korea? Nobody would have believed it. But now we're seeing that they're turning towards Iran to provide these drones, and the drones are important. You know, if you think back to World War II, you think about the Blitz in London. And you think about how the Germans sent V-1s and V-2s, you know, these were essentially early cruise missiles, early ballistic missiles into London to terrify the population, other parts of England. So the idea here is just what Putin is doing now. It is to terrorize the population. There is no military advantage to the kinds of attacks that he's conducting, other than he wants to inflict pain on the Ukrainian people. So very concerning that we're seeing these reports that up to 30% of the electrical generation capability of Ukraine has been taken out. Winter is coming. He wants to make the Ukrainian people desperate, make them cold, and starve them to death.
And earlier on, we were reporting that we had evidence, but now apparently we have confirmed that Iranian troops are directly engaged on the ground in Crimea. This is according to the Pentagon now that has come forward. They were holding a briefing there. What do you make of that? What does this mean? How does this change the dynamic?
Yeah, these are not frontline troops. So these aren't Iranian regulars who are holding weapons. They are training the Russians on how to use these drones that they have been selling to the Russians. So again, you know, when we think of the drones that the U.S. has used over the years, they're very precise. These kinds of drones are sort of point targets. You can put in a coordinate, a latitude, a longitude, and they will go to an area. It's not like they're very sophisticated, but they have been effective. They've taken out quite a bit of the electrical generating capacity within Ukraine, and so they are having an effect, just not a military effect. But that's what those Iranian advisors are doing. They're teaching the Russians how to use these weapons that are terrorizing the Ukrainian population.
And one more question, Steve, if you don't mind. The EU leaders today giving the green light to this plan to provide Ukraine with financial support over the next year. That's after Zelensky warned that Russia is just trying to spark this refugee exodus, you know, by destroying energy infrastructure and all these other points to keep the economy going. Are Ukrainian refugees, do you think, getting the support that they need right now?
I think they are. Many of those refugees, just by the definition, have moved out of their homes and have moved to areas where they can be taken care of by NGOs and by international relief organizations. The people I'm more concerned about are the people that are still left in their homes or in the Russian-occupied areas that are going to lose their electricity with a harsh winter coming on. So it's the people under the Russian occupation, I think, that are more in danger, and the people that I worry about the most.
Steve Ganyard, always great to have your perspective. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Kira.
So the main thing that I took out of that is that Iran is working with Russia against Ukraine. Ooh, interesting. Sounds like the battle rages on. If Zelensky claims Russians want to do it, it means he is going to do it. That's simple. All that Zelensky needs to do is stop pending for NATO membership, then assures his country will be neutral, and NATO and himself call out Russia for peace talks and or an agreement to withdraw Russian forces out of Ukraine and avoid escalation. That's the only way this war could end and possibly avoid World War III. He's going to blow the dam. Get the hell out of the way. If the Russians do in fact do this, isn't it about time Russian cities start to experience themselves the Putin effect? A whole video based on probability. How about Zelensky stops warning us about what Russia may or may not be planning to do and focuses on fighting his own fight? More villages! His own perks say he's not even there. Don't let him do it, Lord. Would that be Putin or Zelensky? So people are saying whatever Zelensky says that Putin is going to do, then Zelensky's going to do it. All right. Same people that will fall apart if this takes place are those that call you a Russian bot if you suggest the idea of negotiations. Prayers and wisdom of God and Jesus, please. Jesus in Jesus' name. Amen. Yeah, I hear that. All right, moving on. Just kind of checking in with where everything's at today. Oh, we got a couple of lovely young ladies here. CBS News. Ukraine officials say Russia is planning large-scale disaster in southern territory.
The Security Council will meet in an open session today to discuss claims by the U.S. and its allies that Russia is using Iranian-made drones to attack Ukraine. American officials say that they have evidence Russia used kamikaze drones this week to attack civilian and vital infrastructure targets. They're also claiming that Iranian troops are in Crimea, helping Russian troops launch those drones.
And as Russia continues those airstrikes this morning, both sides are preparing for a likely battle over control of the key southern city of Kherson. Meanwhile, Russian TV showed President Vladimir Putin visiting recently drafted soldiers training to fight. Holly Williams is in Kyiv with more on President Vladimir Zelensky's claims that Russia is plotting a large-scale disaster in Ukraine. Holly, good morning.
Good morning. Yes, President Zelensky claims that Russia is planning to blow up a dam in southern Ukraine and has already laid mines. He says it would impact hundreds of thousands of people and could even leave a nuclear power plant without water for cooling.
Russian state TV showed Vladimir Putin visiting a training base for mobilized troops, trying out a new sniper rifle for himself and admiring the boots his soldiers wear on Ukraine's deadly front line.
Do you think he's logical right now?
My personal opinion, he's unhealthy.
Vitaly Klitschko is the mayor of Kyiv, a former world heavyweight champion and a symbol of Ukraine's resistance. He told us his country urgently needs better air defense systems.
You've been asking the West for more air defense systems since February. You must be frustrated.
I don't want to complain. I just tell, please.
Wow, Klitschko's the mayor of Kiev. I did not realize that. Chatty!
Please, we need that.
He's begging for help because of this. A new wave of Russian strikes that Ukraine says destroyed 30% of its power stations in just over a week. The government's warning of rolling blackouts.
They want to make our citizens freezing in the winter.
Natalia Shkarupa and her daughter Ilona live in a tiny apartment in the suburbs of Kyiv. If the heating doesn't work this winter, Natalia told us, they'll go and stay in her parents' house, where there's a wood burner. Giving up is not an option, she said. We believe there's a bright future.
What did you learn from boxing that has been useful to you during this war?
It's not important your size, much more important, will to win and spirit.
Cringy.
U.S. says it has information that troops from Iran are on the ground supporting Russian drone attacks here in Ukraine. The Ukrainian government claims that Russia's ordered nearly 2,500 so-called kamikaze drones from Iran. Anne-Marie and Nancy.
Holly, can you talk a little bit about how things are on the ground there this morning? We've seen so many different situations in which the civilians there have been affected.
Yeah, I mean, look, Kyiv and a number of other Ukrainian cities had a relatively calm, relatively quiet summer. I mean, the security situation had improved somewhat. Now we've had this new wave of Russian attacks, including here in Kyiv. And obviously, when you speak to people, they're worried. I mean, it's frightening. Who wouldn't be frightened when their air raid sirens sort of singing out overnight and during the day? You know, I think that that people are frightened, but millions of Ukrainians have decided to stay in their country despite the invasion, come what may, and they've kind of dug their heels in. And I think it's really interesting for our viewers to see, and we've tried to reflect this in our reporting, that the Ukrainians who've stayed put are really trying to live their lives as close to normal as possible, almost as an act of resistance.
You know, you were just talking about those kamikaze drones, and at least what the U.S. and its allies are saying is not only is Russia being provided with these drones, they're also being provided with personnel, Iranian personnel, to help them learn how to fly these things, because obviously there's some specialized skill that's needed to do it. What is it about these drones? They're kamikaze drones, so I presume they're one and done. When they go down, then that's it. You can't use it again. Why are they so effective?
Well, it's a really good question. Look, they're very small. They're apparently quite difficult to track on radar for the Ukrainians, but they're packed with explosives, and they detonate on impact with a kind of devastating effect for people on the ground. They are also extremely cheap. The drones that Iran is believed to be supplying to Russia apparently go for around $20,000 each. That is the fraction of a price, the fraction of the price of a guided missile. And many experts believe that Russia had been running low on munitions. Now, Ukraine says that it's had quite a lot of success in shooting down those so-called kamikaze drones, but it hasn't shot down all of them. And those that have hit cities like Kiev have sometimes had a deadly impact.
And Holly, I want to talk to you about what's ahead for many of these Ukrainians that we've been hearing about. Some at this point haven't had any gas, electricity for 3 weeks now because of power issues. How are Ukrainians looking at this long and potentially brutal winter ahead?
Well, as you saw in our report, I was speaking with Vitaly Klitschko, the mayor of Kiev, and I said to him, look, right now Ukraine is saying that 30% of its power stations have been destroyed in the course of just a few days. What if it gets to 70%? What if it gets to, 100%? What if literally people just don't have electricity and gas and heating in their homes here in Kiev? What's the plan then? He said that they're making preparations for a worst case scenario. He wouldn't tell me what that worst case scenario was, but he said that one of the preparations was creating these kind of communal spaces with heating, with basic facilities, so that if people had to leave their homes because they don't have facilities there, they can gather there. So look, the Ukrainians have a plan, but of course they're hoping that it doesn't come to that. And the one thing that they want above all others is better air defense systems from their friends, and they want them now, not in 3 months' time.
And just talking about where the war stands right now, Russian and Ukrainian troops, they seem to be preparing for a major battle in Kherson. That's a region that President Putin illegally annexed. It's now under martial law. What do we know about what's happening there?
Well, we know that people in those Russian-occupied territories in Kherson are being moved away from the front line. We've seen video of that on Russian TV stations. The authorities that are there, that have been installed by Moscow, say that they're going to move up to 60,000 people away from the front line ahead of an expected counteroffensive from the Ukrainians. Look, those areas have been occupied by the Russians for months, and anecdotally, we hear that there's been resistance for the people who live there, including some violent resistance. But it's difficult for us to kind of have an accurate picture of what's going on there because it's so risky for the people who live in those occupied territories to talk to people like us.
All right, Holly, thank you very much.
All right. Wow, kamikaze drones. Boy, oh boy, I was having visions of I don't know, somebody driving one of those things into my freaking apartment. Let's go. But that is not what's happening right now. Right now, Russia's using them. I just realized that my laptop is not plugged in. I hope that plugging it in while I'm streaming is not what caused the problem last time. We're gonna need to plug it in, little buddies. Let's just hope it doesn't turn it into Glitch City like it was last time. And easy does it. Easy does it. All right. Such high respect to the Klitschko brothers. They could just as easily be making millions, living the high life in any other country with their celebrity. Instead, they are home doing their part. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know if he's a good mayor or not. He sure looks like a badass. It makes life feel more like a movie, dude. The problem is that most air defense systems can't intercept those drones, and if they do intercept, they could be suppressed or even become targets themselves. Interesting. I hope before this gets any more out of hand, a resolution can be made. I'm good at Kiev. My thoughts exactly. You gotta sleep in the daytime and run in place at night to stay warm. If you use a space heater, sleep in shifts so someone is always watching it. Get wool blankets and put them under rugs and on tension bars over windows. Trust me, I know. Wow, just all of that just to stay alive. Run in place at night. Yikes, dude. I hope nobody freezes to death, man. I hear that people freeze to death like every winter, bro. People who can't afford to keep the heat on. Man, that's fucked up. All right. Well, we're doing all right on time here. We got one more news special. Oh, look at it. It's our buddy. That's Wolf Blitzer, right? CNN, what Putin's ominous announcement could mean for Russia and Ukrainian people.
Vladimir Putin is doubling down right now on his illegal annexation of 4 Ukrainian regions, declaring martial law in those areas, even as his troops suffer a string of losses out there on the battlefield. CNN's Brian Todd has a closer look for us. Brian, so what else can you tell us about this announcement from Putin?
This announcement is ominous for many people, Wolf. It's going to be very tough now for the Ukrainians inside those regions of Ukraine that Putin claims to have annexed, especially Ukrainians there who don't side with Russia. Vladimir Putin's declaration of martial law in 4 regions of Ukraine, analysts say, could have a crushing effect on Ukrainians in those regions who don't side with Russia.
You could expect certainly curfews and property being seized, but you could also see the mobilization of civilians for army service, which is, again, a war crime.
It could also mean tighter censorship, restrictions on public gatherings, more law enforcement power for Russian officials in those areas of Ukraine. The declaration of martial law allows for the so-called evacuation of people in those Ukrainian regions under the pretext of getting them to safety. Tens of thousands of Ukrainians in the Kherson region have already been relocated as Ukrainian forces made gains there. Human rights expert Sarah Mendelson says that may not rise to the level of ethnic cleansing, but
they could be forcing them through these filtration camps where they're looking at social media, they're looking at whether or not they're pro-Ukrainian. We know that there are upwards of 1 million Ukrainians who've been taken into Russia. We don't know where they are. We expect that that would be more of the same.
Russia doesn't control all of those regions Putin claims to have annexed.
When faced with choices about whether to back down or to double down, Putin has consistently demonstrated over the course of the last month in particular that he is prepared to double down, putting at risk basically everything else.
In the United States, martial law hasn't been imposed in decades. It's been imposed after natural disasters like the 1906 San Francisco earthquake and the Chicago fire of 1871 to ensure order. It was also imposed during the Battle of New Orleans in the Civil War. Now, Putin's also declaring heightened levels of security inside Russia itself, areas not only near Ukraine, but also around Moscow.
Designed to ensure the safety of people, the security and anti-terrorist protection of critical facilities, and the maintenance of public order.
Those measures inside Russia, analysts say, might not rise to the level of martial law technically, but it's clearly a tightening of the screws on his own people by the former KGB colonel.
There are going to be fewer opportunities to escape the reach of the state. The opportunities eventually for travel, both within the country and outside of it, are likely to be limited.
The analyst we spoke to also said we should watch for the possibility that some governors of regions inside Russia, not the Ukrainian regions that Putin wants to annex, but regions inside Russia itself, those governors could start to impose even more crushing restrictions on their citizens than have been talked about. That would be in an effort by those governors to please Vladimir Putin. So watch for that.
We will indeed. All right, Brian, thank you very much.
All right. Pretty basic stuff, man. The war rages on, basically. Putin says he learned about the values and goals of humanity during his years with the KGB. Lord help us. A dictator declaring martial law is like water getting itself wet. Ha ha ha. The narcissist pushes the chessboard off the table. Once he realizes he's losing. Is Putin losing? Maybe. We got one article to read on this topic. This is getting worse and worse. I can't imagine living in those conditions in this cold. If you're in a situation where you strategically lost, then trying to double down is always a strategic mistake. This is a case of pride over reason of sound mind. He who makes war with others has not made peace with himself. He talks about Nazis. He's the biggest of all. Alrighty. Let's get to this CNBC article. From today, Russia could be about to withdraw its troops from another part of Ukraine. Defense analysts say the evacuation of civilians from the occupied Kherson region in southern Ukraine could be setting the scene for another Russian withdrawal. Up to 60,000 civilians are expected to be evacuated in the next few days from the part of the Kherson region on the west bank of the Dnipro River. As Russian authorities continue a mass evacuation of civilians from occupied Kherson in southern Ukraine, defense analysts believe that the movement of people is setting the scene for Moscow to withdraw its troops from a significant part of the region. Up to 60,000 civilians are expected to be evacuated in the next few days from the western part of the Kherson region, on the right-hand side of the Dnipro River, to the eastern bank of the river, with residents told then to travel to other Russia-occupied regions. Residents were told to leave Kherson after Russian-installed officials warned them that Ukraine is preparing to launch a large-scale offensive. Ukraine has decried the evacuations, likening them to deportations and telling residents not to comply. Vladimir Saldo, the region's Russian-installed acting governor, claimed that the evacuation was necessary as Ukraine was building up forces for a large-scale offensive, and that Russia wanted to protect its citizens. Meanwhile, his deputy, Kirill Stremazov, said on Telegram late Tuesday that in the very near future, the battle for Kherson will begin. Iran sends military trainers to Crimea to teach Russians how to fly drones. Aha, we heard a little bit about that earlier. We cannot rule out that both Kherson and the right west bank of the Dnipro River of Kherson region will come under shelling. Stremazov said Wednesday. On Thursday, he claimed Russian forces had repelled 4 attempts by Ukrainian troops to break through in the Kherson direction. For its part, Ukraine has disputed that preface to the evacuations, saying Russia was trying to scare civilians and was using the evacuation as propaganda. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry declined to comment further to CNBC on the situation in Kherson. However, in a sign that the military situation in Ukraine is highly sensitive. In a sign that the military situation in Ukraine is highly sensitive. Okay. That's seemingly the case for both sides. General Sergei Surovkin, the newly appointed commander of Russia's armed forces in Ukraine, described Russia's special military operation, as it calls its invasion, in Ukraine as tense, adding that further actions and plans regarding the city of Kherson will depend on the developing military tactical situation, which is not easy. Am I saying it wrong? Dude, sometimes I say this stuff wrong. I thought it was saying Dnipro. I'll just keep going. More enigmatically, he added, we will act consciously in a timely manner without ruling out difficult decisions, but refrained to give further details. Setting the scene for withdrawal. Given the unguarded comments from Russian officials, analysts believe Russia is setting the scene now for an imminent withdrawal from a chunk of the whole Kherson region. Russian authorities are likely setting information conditions to justify planned Russian retreats and significant territorial losses in Kherson. analysts at the Institute for the Study of War think tank said Wednesday. It said the recent statements by Russian officials are likely attempts to set information conditions for a full Russian retreat across the Dnipro. There we go. What is it? Dnipro River, which would cede Kherson City and other significant territory in Kherson Oblast province to advancing Ukrainian troops. Another withdrawal for Russia would mark a further humiliation for Moscow. Previous retreats by Russian forces from Kiev, the outpost Snake Island, or Kharkiv, or tactical withdrawals, as Russia has characterized them, have made even the most pro-Kremlin figures in Russia critical of the country's military officials and strategy. The most recent humiliation for Moscow came when Ukraine flagged in the summer that it would launch a counter-offensive in the south, leading Russia to redeploy forces there, only for it to launch a massive surprise counterattack in the northeast of the country, allowing it to recapture a swath of territory. Now what's this about a false flag attack? Let's fast forward to this. Tensions centered on Kherson on Thursday, with Russia's defense ministry claiming that Ukraine's armed forces had tried to break through the defense of the Russian troops by wedging into the defense of Russian units near Sukhanovo in the Kherson region. It insisted that Russian troops had completely restored the front line of defense in the entire direction. There are now concerns that Russia has plans to cover a retreat with a false flag attack on the Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant. A false flag attack, but those are conspiracy theories. So I guess only Russia does them. That's a real term that's used. So Russia, according to CNBC, is going to utilize a false flag attack. Huh. I've never heard that ever referred to as anything other than a conspiracy theory by mainstream media. Interesting. So basically, Russia uses false flags, but we never do. Okay. Except, anyway, moving on. Upriver from Kherson City, with the ISW think tank noting that the Russian military may believe that breaching the dam could cover their retreat from the right bank of the Dnipro River and prevent or delay Ukrainian advances across the river. Russia has claimed to have information, but presenting no evidence. Operation Northwoods, that's what I was thinking of. Operation Northwoods is a well-documented false flag from our country. But presenting no evidence that Kiev intends to strike the dam at the Kakhovka HPP, while Ukraine has said that if Russia's forces blow up the power plant, that will lead to a catastrophe with a high number of casualties. Russian authorities likely intend these warnings about a purported Ukrainian strike on the Kakhovka HPP to set information conditions for Russian forces to damage the dam and blame Ukraine for the subsequent damage and loss of life, all while using the resulting floods to cover their own retreat further south into Kherson Oblast. Kakhovka. Alrighty then, let's keep on rocking. Smart Twitter account tweet about quiet quitting. Word up. I bet my left testicle that the Pentagon Langley will false flag first. It be like that sometimes. Okay, so moving to the next topic, Joe Biden. President Biden delivers remarks on deficit reduction.
Stoic vaccination efforts that saved lives, helped our economy recover from the lost jobs during the pandemic. 10 million jobs created, a record for any administration at this point in the presidency. 3.5% unemployment, 50-year low, 50-year low. 700,000, nearly 700,000 manufacturing jobs created, with companies investing billions of dollars to build industries of the future here in America. Proving that made in America is no longer just a slogan. We're rebuilding our roads, our bridges, our ports, our airports. We're delivering clean water, high-speed internet to every American. And the price of gas at the pump is coming down. It's down $1.20 since this summer, and just this week, last week, it's fallen another 10 cents. And today we have further proof that we're rebuilding the economy in a responsible way. Today, my administration announced that this year, the deficit fell by $1.4 trillion. The largest one-year drop in American history, $1.4 trillion decline in the deficit. Let me repeat that. The largest ever decline in the federal deficit. Let me be clear. This record deficit reduction includes the cost of my student loan plan and everything else we're paying for. The deficit is down $1.4 trillion this year, even after accounting for 30 years of debt relief paid in advance. You know, this follows last year's drop of $350 billion in the deficit. And because we're making sure the largest corporations pay their fair share, cracking down on billionaire tax cheats and giving Medicare the power to negotiate lower drug prices in the future, just getting underway, which lowers one of the biggest costs that government and families have to pay. We'll reduce, because of that, the deficit another $250 billion over the next 10 years. You know, we're going from historically strong economic recovery to a steady and stable growth while reducing the deficit. Building an economy where everyone does well, where the poor have a ladder up, the middle class does well, and the wealthy do very well. They're not hurt by it. And this is the economic vision I've had for America and the reason I ran, one of the reasons. Republicans in Congress have a very different vision. Now listen to me closely. Congressional Republicans love to call Democrats big spenders, and they always claim to be for less federal spending. But let's look at the facts. The federal deficit went up every single year in the Trump administration, every single year he was president. It went up before the pandemic. It went up during the pandemic. It went up every single year on his watch, the Republican watch. In fact, in 3 years before COVID hit, the deficit ballooned by another $400 billion. They're the facts. And one big reason for that is Republicans voted for a $2 trillion tax cut, a Trump tax cut, which overwhelmingly benefits the wealthy and the biggest corporations. And that racked up the deficit significantly. On my watch, things have been different. The deficit's come down both years that I've been in office. And I just signed legislation that's we're going to reduce it even more in the decades to come. Now, Republicans in Congress are doubling down on their commitment to explode the deficit again. Just this week, it's hard to make this stuff up. Just this week, Republican leaders said if they get their way, they're going to extend the Trump tax cuts, which are due to expire in a couple of years. Extend them. They said they'll repeal the corporate minimum tax of just 15% that I just signed into law. 15%. They'd allow the largest and most prosperous corporations in America to go back to paying zero in federal income tax, which 55 of them did in 2020. They said they'll repeal the lower prescription drug cost, and it will take effect next year. These major reductions in drug costs don't really kick in until next year. If Republicans repeal it, it's going to raise costs to millions of seniors, and the cost of the federal government will be billions of dollars. Put it all together, the Republican plan would add about $3 trillion to the deficit. $3 trillion. That's their plan. That's what they did under my predecessor, and that's what they intend to do again. Adding another $3 trillion to the deficit is reckless, it's irresponsible, and it would make inflation worse. For Americans, the deficit could not be clearer. We don't have to take my word for it.
Yeah,
it's better for things to be affordable. The deficit doesn't really directly affect us. I've seen some pretty interesting breakdowns on the deficit where it's like we're purposely going into debt. We're purposely keeping the deficit here. I mean, what it amounts to when you dig through the clusterfuck of how the Fed works, it all goes back to the Fed. We're basically in debt to the banks, and it's how they want it, dude. It's just debt slavery. It affects us more like how much it costs for gas and how much food costs, and yeah.
Therefore, they've laid out a plan and they laid out very clearly. Congressional Republicans say, and you all know this, their number one priority is to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act. Now, here's what that means. If they get their way, the power we just gave Medicare to begin to negotiate lower prescription drugs goes away, gone. If they get their way, the $2,000 cap on prescription drug costs, which takes effect next year, maximum any senior would have to pay no matter what their drug costs are, would be $2,000, goes away, gone. The $35 a month cap on insulin, which takes effect next year, folks on Medicare, gone. The savings on health care premiums of $800 a year for millions of Americans under the Affordable Care Act.
So you're pointing out that this is like a Mitt Romney or a Ted Cruz speech, and then somebody else pointed out it's because he's down bad. Yeah, he's trying to work on those approval ratings.
Gone. And of course, they're still determined to repeal the Affordable Care Act, which means an end to the protections for tens of millions of people who cannot afford health insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. Let's remember that. We're talking about millions of people will lose their health insurance because they do not have a way to get it because they have a pre-existing condition. That's gone as well. And they're doing everything they can to get gas prices. We're doing everything we can to keep gas prices down. The Republicans are against it all. And it's all part of the trickle-down mentality that says it doesn't matter what's happening on Main Street as long as Wall Street's feeling good. One more thing. If you're worried about the economy, you need to know this. The Republican leadership in Congress has made it clear. They will crash the economy next year by threatening the full faith and credit of the United States for the first time in our history, putting the United States in default unless we yield to their demand to cut Social Security and Medicare. You heard that one, right? You all heard them say that. That's what they're saying. Let me be really clear. I will not yield. I will not cut Social Security. I will not cut Medicare, no matter how hard they work at it. Folks, we know what the Republicans in Congress will do if they regain power. They're telling us, they're being straight up about it. They're going to repeal lower prescription drug prices, I just signed into law, and raise drug prices. They're going to cut Social Security and Medicare. They'll pass massive tax cuts for the wealthy, make them permanent, which they're not now, the individual tax cuts. They'll threaten the very foundations of the American economy if we don't meet their demands. And they talk about inflation. Everything they've proposed or are proposing will make inflation worse. Everything they're proposing will make inflation worse. Let me close with this. Over the last few years, we've faced some of the most difficult challenges in our history, both at home and abroad. But we're making real progress. We just have to keep going.
Yeah, the more I think about it, it's like the deficit doesn't really affect us at all. Like the deficit is just a scam. So it's like, hey, I'm lowering your quality of life so we can chip away at the deficit. Like, bro, we'll be chipping away at that deficit forever. Just give us the cheaper gas and food prices. Honestly, scammed.
I know we can. For everything we've been through, I've never been more optimistic about America's future. We just have to remember who we are. We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. And we're better positioned than any other country in the world to get through this difficult period. Inflation's worse all around the world. So keep the faith. Keep the faith. And God bless you, and may God protect our troops. And I want to say one more thing, actually. You know, I know, and I don't blame you, you want to ask me about the midterms. And here's what I think. It's been back and forth with them ahead, us ahead, them ahead, back and forth. And the polls have been all over the place. I think that we're going to see one more shift back to our side in the closing days. And let me tell you why I think that. We're starting to see some of the good news on the economy. Gas prices are down sharply in 46 of the 50 states because of what I've been doing. We're moving in the right direction. There's more to come. State unemployment today, state unemployment was all-time lows in 11 states, and 17 states have unemployment rates under 3%. The new deficit numbers, it's a record decrease. It's never happened before. The election is not a referendum, it's a choice. It's a choice. And the Republicans can criticize my economic record, but look at what I've inherited and what I've done, and look at what they're offering. They want to double down on the Trump tax cuts for the wealthy, make them permanent because they're going to expire in 2025. They want to send jobs overseas, where big corporations can, in fact, pay lower wages, increase their profits. And these are tax cuts that give most benefits to billionaires and wealthy corporations. And let's get specific. They want to abolish the 15%. 15%, what a terrible thing to ask a corporation to pay. 15% tax that I insisted that those 55 corporations who made $40 billion and didn't pay a red cent, they now, my God, they got to pay 15%. If Republicans get their way, the deficit is going to soar, the tax burden is going to fall on the middle class, and Republicans are working really hard. And this is what kind of, I have to admit, every once in a while they surprise me. They have three, not one, not two, three plans to cut Social Security benefits. 3 plans. And they're not going to stop there. They're going to do big pharma's bidding to repeal my plan to allow Medicare to negotiate prescription drugs prices. We pay the highest in the world. And in doing so, it's going to raise drug prices. And they're going to raise big pharma's profits. They're doing fine, big pharma. They're not hurting at all. And they're going to raise your health insurance premiums. It's mega trickle down. Mega trickle down. The kind of policies that have failed the country before and will fail it again. And it'll mean more wealth to the very wealthy, higher inflation for the middle class. That's the choice we're facing. That's why I think that we're going to do just fine. Thank you.
Mr. President, speaking of
on the debt ceiling, do you support the permanent repeal of the debt ceiling, sir?
The permanent repeal of the debt ceiling? What do you mean?
Yes.
You mean just say we don't have a debt limit?
No debt.
No. That'd be irresponsible.
Mr. President, speaking of midterms.
You have the
Speaking
means
of
and the
midterms,
will to
last night
continue
you said-
supporting
Wait,
Ukraine.
well, let's get one at a time, okay?
Thank you, sir. So you heard the Republicans. You have the means and the will to continue supporting Ukraine.
Yes, because if we support Ukraine, we're supporting all of Europe. We're supporting NATO. Do you think that Mr. Putin decides he's just going to deal with Ukraine and that's the end of it? No. I don't understand the threat that they're saying they may have to stop funding the Ukrainians in their war against this brutal dictator. Yes, last one.
On the midterm, sir, last night you said you need 53, not 51 votes to pass your agenda.
I'm just getting greedy.
What did you mean by that? Were you referring to Manchin and Sinema?
No, I just think the more we have, the more certain. 51 just gives me one more. I'd like to have 3 more. It'd make it a lot easier. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's go. Okay. I don't really have that many comments on that. You know, ultimately, like economically, I probably lean left. And then ethically, being a Christian, I lean right. Probably looks something like, I don't know, like maybe national socialism. I wish the White House journalists would ask real questions. It's really sad seeing them change from Trump and asking hard-hitting questions, to become seat fillers with the occasional softball questions. What a joke journalism has become. Let's go, Brandon. He wouldn't recognize the truth if he tripped up the steps over it. It's just talking heads, bro. Oh, we're going to fix the deficit. She's asking about the debt ceiling. Should we lift the debt ceiling? Let's just get an infinite debt. I mean, what does this debt really mean to us? What does the deficit really mean to the people, man? Just fucking kick it down the line. It's really easy. Like, it's one thing when you have a bill directly and you're trying to avoid that bill your entire life. And some people do that. Some people just dodge their bills their entire life. Now there's this bill that's like not really any of ours. You know, it's all of us as a people, as a country. And yeah, like, why should we pay it? You know, fuck it. All right, moving on. Biden announces more steps to lower gas prices. ABC News. This is from a couple days ago.
Today, I'm announcing 3 critical steps that my administration will take to reduce gas prices at the pump. First, the Department of Energy will release another 15 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, extending our previously announced release through the month of December. Independent analysts have confirmed that drawdowns from the reserve so far have played a big role in bringing down oil prices, bringing them down. So we're going to continue to responsibly use that national asset. And today, the United States is the largest producer of oil and petroleum products in the world. We export more than we import, and I've still heard from oil companies that they're worried that investing in additional oil production today will in case demand goes down in the future, and they're not going to be able to sell their oil products at a competitive price later. Well, we have a solution for that. The United States government's going to purchase oil to refill the Strategic Petroleum Reserve when prices fall to $70 a barrel. That means oil companies can invest to ramp up production now with confidence they'll be able to sell their oil to us at that price in the future, $70. Refining and refilling the reserve at $70 a barrel is a good price for companies, and it's a good price for the taxpayers, and it's critical to our national security. The third thing I'm doing is I'm calling on oil companies to pass the savings on to consumers. Consider this. In the second quarter of this year, profits at 6 of the largest producers, publicly traded oil companies, were more than $70 billion. That's $70 billion in just one quarter, 90 days, $70 billion. So far, American oil companies are using that windfall, the windfall of profits, to buy back their own stock, passing that money on to their shareholders, not to consumers. You should not be using your profits to buy back stock or for dividends. Not now, not while a war is raging. You should be using these record-breaking profits to increase production and refining. Invest in America for the American people. Bring down the price you charge at the pump to reflect what you pay for the product. You still make a significant profit. Your shareholders will still do very well, and the American people will catch a break they deserve and get a fair price at the pump as well. One more thing I want to mention today. Our country needs to pass permitting reform to accelerate the development of clean energy. Right now, the process of getting clean energy projects approved is too cumbersome and too time-consuming. So I'm asking the Congress, pass a permitting bill to speed up the approval of all kinds of energy production, from wind to solar to clean hydrogen, because we need to get this moving now, quickly, now. We'll keep doing everything we can to keep it going, to ensure that our energy independence and security is available, and to lower gas prices here at home, and to give folks a little bit of breathing room. We just have to remember who we are. We're the United States of America, for God's sake. There's not a single thing we can't do when we put our minds to it. And we can strengthen our energy security now, and we can build a clean energy economy for the future at the same time. It's totally within our capacity, totally within our capacity. Gas prices are coming down. We're going to do everything we can to make sure they continue to come down, and companies act responsibly so it's reflected at the pump. Thank you all, and may God bless you, and may God protect our troops. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos.
My pump. Talking heads, floating heads, saying things. Sometimes it sounds like Reagan. Clean energy, by the way, like toxic solar panels and electric that runs on coal. Yeah, electricity that runs on coal. I appreciate your guys' input, man. Some of this stuff falls out of my expertise. I mean, it's not like I'm not it doesn't matter if you lower the gas prices. Grocery stores are passing diesel fuel costs onto consumers by raising prices of food by ridiculous percentages. Look at what food cost in 2019 versus now. Despicable. Will we have winter of $75 gas fill-ups and nothing at the grocery store will cost less than $5? Damn. Gas was $2.30 a gallon when Joe Tato took office. So far, he's lowered the price to $3.90 a gallon. Damn. Don't underestimate Joe's ability to F things up, Obama. In the immortal words of a great American rabbit, what a maroon! Gonna see that gas double, baby. So nothing long-term and nothing that will make a difference. This is what happens when you wreck your own oil production and expect oil companies to not make significant profits. When he was talking about companies like offshoring, outsourcing labor and hiring people outside of the country, dude, the corporations do that no matter who's in office. You know, if anything, if they're going to raise the minimum wage or whatever, like the leftist kind of stuff, that gives the corporations even more incentive to hire offshore. Giant douche or turd sandwich, man. It's a little bit deeper than that, but not much. I'm playing Symphony of War. Let's go. Torrenting bad. Never torrent. We don't torrent around here. But I'm glad you're having a good time, buddy. Okay, wrapping it up here on this topic. We got our buddies at CNN, politics, CNN.com. Appeals court pauses Biden student loan debt relief program while it reviews the case. A federal appeals court put a temporary administrative hold on President Joe Biden's student loan forgiveness program, barring the administration from canceling loans covered under the policy while the court considers a challenge to the policy. Come on, boomers. Chop, chop. Pay the loans. The order came from the 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in a case brought by 6 Republican-led states. A district court dismissed the case earlier this week, and the states are now asking the appeals court for a preliminary injunction halting the policy. The appeals court gave the administration until Monday to respond to that request, and the states will have until Tuesday to reply to that response. The states had asked the appeals court to act before Sunday, the earliest date the Biden administration had said it would grant student loan discharges. About 22 million people have already applied for debt relief since the application opened on October 14th. The lawsuit, which was filed last month, was dismissed on October 20th by a lower court judge who ruled that the plaintiffs did not have the legal standing to bring the challenge. In another win for Biden that same day, Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett rejected a separate challenge to the student loan forgiveness program brought by a Wisconsin taxpayers group. The Biden administration is also facing lawsuits from Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich and conservative groups such as the Job Creators Network Foundation and the Cato Institute. Many of the legal challenges claim that the Biden administration does not have the legal authority to broadly cancel student loan debt. My money for scamming kids. You can't take away our kid scam money. Lawyers for the government argue that Congress gave the Secretary of Education the power to discharge debt in a 2003 law known as the HEROES Act. I'm a hero. The Biden... We're almost done. The Biden administration's plan. Biden's student loan forgiveness program, first announced in August, aims to deliver debt relief to millions of borrowers before federal student loan payments resume in January after a nearly 3-year pandemic-related pause. Under Biden's plan, eligible individual borrowers who earned less than $125,000 in either 2020 or 2021 and married couples or heads of households who made less than $250,000 annually in those years will see up to $10,000 of their federal student loan debt forgiven. Nice. If a qualifying borrower also received a federal Pell Grant while enrolled in college, the individual is eligible for up to $20,000 of debt forgiveness. Nice! I was using Pell Grants at UNLV. Ho, I might be figuring it out, boys. This story has been updated with additional details on Friday. Cool. Well, that's just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Pretty meat and potatoes, kind of a boring Friday for you guys, but we got to stay up on what's going on in the world. Be real, some of y'all wouldn't even listen to the president talk if it weren't for me. You're welcome. I'm keeping you in the loop, baby. We got a little bit of an interesting final video for you today. This is CBN.com. I'm starting to be intrigued by this source. I'm going to go ahead and subscribe. CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network. So this is Bring It Online. Is the Masons' doctrine compatible with Christian doctrine? And I really don't watch like any of these videos before I start the show. I'm not sure what he's going to say on the subject, but I have a feeling that he's going to say that it is not in line with Christianity. So let's go ahead and find out what they've got to say. Oh, here we go. They triggered the wokeness, Freemasonry, fact checking. They're really good. They're really, really good. Never did a bad.
Well, time to bring it on with your email questions. And our first question today is from Jim. And Pat, Jim says, I read an article which said that only married people can enter the kingdom of God. While I cannot find this anywhere in the Bible, I'm worried now because I'm destined to be single forever.
Completely fucking ridiculous. Paul said that if you can live a life of celibacy outside of marriage, then you should. Get the hell out of here, dude. Just get out of my way, dude.
Even though I believe in Jesus as my Savior, does this mean I'm going to hell?
You know, if that wasn't so ridiculous, I would feel sorry for you. I am sorry. The junk that is being passed around in the name of religion. The matter of fact, the Bible has it just the other way. So if you get married, you're not sinning. But some people have a wonderful gift to be celibate, and it's a gift of God. It's a special calling.
Thank you, God, for my celibacy. Let's go. Girls said that I was an incel freak. Actually, ladies, this is my calling from God. It's a gift. School.
This thing is nonsense. Of course, Terry and I being married, we're both in heaven. We don't have to worry about it. But no, I think I feel so much better. I'm so glad for you. It's nonsense.
Yeah, that is. I've never even heard that one before.
And the Apostle Paul said, I wish others were like me, but not everybody has this gift. I mean, here's the Apostle Paul. He said, I could lead around a wife like Peter and the other apostles, but I don't do it. Oh, please. What's next?
This is Walt, who says, is it important for me to belong to some church organization in order to be saved? I've always believed since I was young that Jesus does not require us to belong to a specific religious denomination in order to receive his salvation.
This is a tough one. I always tell people, you should try out some local churches. You should try. You should make an effort. I made an effort, and I gave up. I really hope I'm not going to hell. I don't think I am.
Also, I like to read the New Testament, but not the Old Testament. Anything wrong with that?
Yeah, you should definitely read the Old Testament. Let's go.
The second question, yes, there is something wrong with it because you lose the continuity. It's like a complete package, and you see the glorious work of God through history. And when you read the Old Testament, you realize that Jesus is a fulfillment of Old Testament prophecies. And you get a flavor of what God's dealing with his people was all about. And it took place over 2,000 years, and it's absolutely, it'll enrich your life, So the Bible says all Scripture, passe graphe, all Scripture is given by inspiration of God. So that's by information. Now, the second thing is, I remember that little child, they had the preacher for lunch, and the little kid says, Pastor, what abomination do you belong to? I think
That's great.
we have hundreds of denominations. No, you don't have to belong to one of them to get saved. You're saved by faith in Jesus Christ. Then the Bible says, don't forsake the assembling of yourselves together. But it doesn't say you have to be a Presbyterian, a Baptist, a Pentecostal, a Catholic, or a Lutheran, or Methodist, or any of these others.
Right.
Okay.
This is Richard, who says, is the Masons' doctrine compatible with Christian doctrine? Can someone practice the Masons' faith and be a born-again, full gospel believer?
All right, here's the real shit test. I think everything this guy said is pretty based so far. Here is the real test.
I don't believe you can.
Beast! Get fucking wrecked. You know, I was kind of spying on some of the Alaskan Freemasons yesterday. I honestly kind of feel bad for them guys. I think they just want to be cool, dude. I think they just want to be cool. There's like, I want the soy initiation. I'm going to make it to the 32nd soy degree. They're just, you know, dude, I think they just want to fit in, bro. I just think they want to be about something. I kind of feel bad for the Freemasons, guys. I think they're not very cool. Here we go.
There was a man named Pike, and some people question Pike, but he was apparently a 33rd degree Mason, and he wrote a book outlining the beliefs of the Masons, and some pretty horrible stuff in there. They are teaching, as I understand it, that the devil is God, and that the Jehovah of the Old Testament is Satan. I mean, there's some really some bad stuff in there, and it's all very secret when you get higher up the ladder. And they had something in the time of the French Revolution called illuminated Masonic belief, and those people were the so-called Illuminati. And it was clearly anti-Christian in its point of view. As a matter of fact, some of the Illuminati teachings led to the horrors of the Russian Revolution and the French Revolution. So it's impossible, in my opinion, that you can be a practicing up-the-line Mason and still be a born-again, spirit-filled Christian, which is what your question was. All right.
This is Damien, who says, my mother suffered from...
Now, I'd say something kind of controversial here, guys. Let me set up a little hypothetical situation. You happen to be a Freemason, you know, and you haven't really, like, been doing it that long. You know, you're not, like, super high up. I hear for, like, a lot of basic Freemasons, it's basically like a gentleman's club. You're going fishing. You're going to your little checkered board, Masonic rite ritual things. You haven't really seen much, you know. It's like, and then you find my channel and you're like, oh, this guy's pretty based. I agree with what a lot of what he's saying. And then you're like, oh no, but I'm a Freemason and we just do like pancake fundraisers. And like, I really do kind of think, you know, I don't automatically want you to like leave my channel or like stop watching me or taking part in what I do just because you're a Freemason. I think you should maybe like think about what you're doing. Be very observant. Like, what exactly is your lodge about? What are they taking part in? Study as a Christian. Study the Bible. Listen to sermons. Study theology and think, well, what am I learning about God and spirituality from my lodge versus what am I learning from the Bible? You know, I don't have like a super firm stance against it. I think ultimately over the years, you should probably realize that being a Freemason isn't the way to go. I'll tell you what, man. If Wolfgang had somebody who was a Freemason and you kind of just like stayed a Freemason and you kind of just, I don't know, maybe send me a little email like, hey, this is kind of what my Freemasonic lodge is doing, I wouldn't mind having some boys behind the scenes, if you know what I mean. But yeah, it's a little bit of my thoughts on it. You know, I'm not going to like condemn you right out the gate just for being a Freemason, but you should think about these things, guys. A lot of people out there who just don't really know what Freemasonry is about. And ultimately, what this guy's saying right here, it is ultimately what it's about. It's a negative thing.
from a stroke and diabetes 7 months ago. She is a born-again Christian. I sat down and asked her if the stroke had taken away her ability to pray for her healing, and she said yes. Pat, what can I do to help her get back her ability to pray again and receive her healing?
If I would have punched Puma, everybody in that RV would have jumped me, bro. Everybody in that RV would have jumped me. Easy.
Look, all she's got to do is receive and just say, look, Mother, don't say anything, don't do anything, just receive, just be open, and I'm going to pray for you. And you do the praying, and let the Lord come in and fill this dear lady with his spirit. You know, the easiest person to pray for is a little baby. A little baby can't pray, but they don't fight you. And same thing with a little child. You know, you don't want somebody just babbling away. You want to pray for them. So the fact that she can't pray, that's not going to hurt anything. Just tell her, just receive, like you're drinking water, just receive. All right, one last question.
Okay, this is a viewer who writes and says, when I told your prayer line of my husband's domestic violence towards me and how each of my children has had their own versions of problems with religion/marriage since then, he prayed with me for a, quote, generational curse to be lifted. My son doesn't want to be anything like his father, and this worries us. Is this generational curse applicable here? If his father refuses to repent, does this hurt my son? What Bible verses apply?
Well, I don't know your situation and what you're asking. You're giving me a few little things that deal with a much larger issue. There is such a thing as a generational curse. For example, if somebody up the line, grandfather was involved in witchcraft, there's a real possibility that you might be subject to invasion by spiritual beings. The Bible also says the sins of the fathers will be visited on the children to the third and fourth generation. I don't know, but it looks like now with genetic information that is now available to us, that the way we live can actually affect our genes. I studied the Mendelian law when I was in college, and I thought it was just fixed. But they're now saying, no, the way you live can affect the genes of your children. And, you know...
You want to know what's crazy, guys? Is that when I was into paganism and the occult and all that, I had a body odor issue. Like, I smelt like fucking garbage, dude. People would always be telling me you stink. I'd have problems at work. People said I stink. If I ever forgot to put on deodorant, it was like a huge fucking deal. I was like a smelly fucking piece of garbage, dude. And ever since I've been a Christian, I just feel like that's not as much of an issue anymore. I smell better. I smell better, dude. Pagans stink. Don't be a stinky pagan LARPer, bro.
If you've got joy and peace and you don't drink and so forth and so on, it will carry forward to the next generation. So I just don't know what your problem is, but certainly if there's a proclivity to crime and evil, in one generation it will go through to the other. And whether we call that a generational curse or whether that's just genetics, it's there. But we can affect, with this I'll be quiet, Dr. Oizen of the Cleveland Clinic was here. He has been here on a number of occasions. He's a very wonderful medical man. And he told me something that shocked me. He said, if a woman who is pregnant will eat broccoli 3 times a week, it will absolutely immunize her child against cancer.
Really?
Dr. Oizen, Cleveland Clinic, not Pat. Dr. Royce, I blame him if you don't agree. You write to Cleveland Clinic. But he said it'll immunize your child, future child. And that's kind of
amazing.
Important.
Yes.
So what we do as pregnant and beyond can make a big difference. Well, that's all the time we've got. Hey, we really appreciate your questions, and I hope I can help you.
All right, a little bit misled by this title here, but he did cover the subject. Every single one of these questions I have asked God in the last 6 months. God is amazing how he hears us and answers, confirms his word. Praise God. I put everything on the line to warn people caught in this doctrine of demons. Give their hearts to Christ and be saved. I made a lot of enemies, and they made sure I lost everything, and the ones I cared about and tried to warn. I guess they enjoyed the show. I'm proud of you, Pat. I really thought you were going the other way on this topic. Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. Thank you, Lord. Based. He's right. Praise God. We are saved by grace because it is by God's grace that we are given faith. Catholic teaching. Masonry and every single major religion are ultimately governed by the 7 Hermetic principles. At the core, it boils down to being as good of a person as possible and getting the results. Science also uses the same principles. Cringe. No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Did this guy ever respond again? Let's see this guy get BTFO'd. Not sure if you follow Jesus, but Christianity isn't about being a good person. Real. I mean, it's part of it. It's the golden rule, but yeah, this guy's a LARPer. As you affirm all religion is be good. Yeah, you are right, because Jesus never started any organized religion. On the contrary, he was against it. The scribes and Pharisees of that day were considered an organized religion. Well, the original Catholic Church. You cannot do any good works to get you into heaven. Real. You are following Hermes, which is why they get Hermetics. It is satanic. Real. Okay. Liar! Every Masonic writer of note states that Masonry is a religion. Fraternities gather in temples. Liar! Dude, I like this guy's style. Who is he calling a liar? Will Derby? He must have deleted his comment or changed his name. Get out of here, Willie. We as Freemasons are instructed from the beginning of our first degree that Freemasonry is not a religion. We are encouraged to seek out our religious aspirations at a place of our choosing. Cringe. You call me pedantic all you want. Truth is truth, and a real Mason knows the truth. Not. I'm not going anywhere. You don't like my answers, ignore them, or go somewhere else. So what else did this guy say? So Ray's a Freemason. You cannot do any good works to get you into heaven. It is by God's grace alone. Even with God's grace, the good work I do within my community, with my Masonic fraternity, makes me feel better. Yeah, well, that good work is in line with liberal Enlightenment values and the interests of interest groups and NGOs, and it's not in line with the Bible, and you're taking an oath, and yeah, man. There's a lot of Freemasons out there who are just confused and just don't know any better, and whatever. I don't lie, and you are badly wrong. Freemasonry is not a religion, and even Pike stated that anyone who wishes to claim that Freemasonry is a religion demeans it. MGTOW's not a movement, bro. Freemasonry is not a religion, bro. All right. Capitalizing liar before and after someone is serious chat energy. All right, my friends. Well, we're about 10 minutes away from the hour-and-a-half mark. We did good, buddies. I've been having a pretty good day today so far. Got up at a decent hour, got my workout in, got my drumming in. Decent podcast out of the way. Trying to think what's in store tonight for the grill and chillin' stream. Probably like cook, you know, get a cooking stream together. We can chit chat while I'm cooking or whatever. But I'm going to try to get a head start on my reflective time tonight. Get some reading done. Get some relaxing done. Times are crazy, my friends. Look up all the Pike quotes pertaining to Lucifer. Yep, I've seen them. I've seen them. Are you foolish? I'm not pro Freemasonry, buddy. Yeah, Freemasons live by the flesh, not the spirit. Yeah, we're speaking the same language, dog. We ain't about Freemasonry over here. I think I'm going to come back and we're going to do like a cooking stream and we'll hang out for a little bit, but to just, for the most part, relax tonight. So we'll probably do like a short cooking stream in a little bit here. But that concludes our podcast for today. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Apparently there's fights tomorrow early. I'll probably end up rewatching them later. Thanks for the support, gang. God bless you,